The call came in just after 4 in the afternoon. A federal detention center in Brooklyn, the kind of place where celebrities go to disappear. The voice on the other end of the line didn't waste time with pleasantries. He was placed in solitary confinement, 30 days, maybe more. The reason? He beat up another inmate, but that wasn't the full story. The man who once threw parties that defined a generation had just been thrown into the darkest corner of the prison system. And the details emerging from behind those walls paint a picture far more disturbing than anyone expected. What really happened in that cell block? Why did a man with everything to lose risk it all in a prison brawl? And what are the guards not telling us about his condition? Everything changed the moment the federal agents stormed his mansions. The search warrants hit both coasts simultaneously. Miami, Los Angeles. The properties were sprawling, palatial, designed to impress. But what the agents found inside wasn't just evidence of a lavish lifestyle. It was evidence of something far more sinister. Inside one mansion alone, they discovered rooms dedicated to sexual activity. Bondage gear, hidden cameras. Homeland Security investigators were stunned. One agent, speaking off the record, made a comparison that would echo through the headlines. He's as bad as Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier who died in a cell while awaiting trial for trafficking minors. The comparison wasn't just sensationalism, it was based on the nature of the allegations. The women involved were described as barely legal or barely illegal. The indictment that followed laid out a pattern of abuse that had allegedly been running for over a decade. Coercion, drugging, forced sexual acts with male prostitutes while Combs watched. The so-called freak-offs weren't just parties. They were elaborate productions. Employees were tasked with arranging travel, booking hotels, and stocking supplies. The supply list became infamous. Drugs, baby oil, lubricants, extra linen, and the cameras. Always the cameras. The recordings weren't just for personal gratification. Prosecutors alleged they were tools of control, insurance, collateral to ensure continued obedience and silence. Combs had created a surveillance state within his own home, a digital prison designed to trap his victims. The man who once sang about not being held down had constructed an elaborate system to hold others down. The court appearance was the first sign of how far he had fallen. 3 federal charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. The judge denied bail. No amount of money would set him free. He was deemed a danger to the community. The man who had once partied with presidents was handcuffed and led away to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, the same facility where Jeffrey Epstein died. The stark reality set in quickly. Gone were the private chefs and designer suits. In their place were cold concrete, metal bars, and the constant threat of violence. Prison officials placed him on 24-hour suicide watch. It's a standard procedure for high-profile inmates, but it's also a psychological weapon, a sign that the system believes you might not be able to handle the pressure. But the pressure wasn't just coming from the guards. Inside those walls, the pecking order is established quickly. New inmates are tested, and celebrities are often the biggest targets. Some inmates saw Diddy as soft, protected, used to being surrounded by security. They thought they could play with him. That was a miscalculation. The word spread fast. A confrontation in the cell block, an inmate running his mouth, pushing buttons, maybe bringing up old files or private knowledge that Diddy wasn't trying to hear. In a place where old scores and loose talk travel fast, that kind of provocation can spark in seconds. And when it did, Diddy didn't back down. He demonstrated that he wasn't a sucker. Sources said he grabbed another inmate. Things got physical. The facility responded by placing him in isolation around 4 in the afternoon, at least 30 days. His legal team was contacted, but didn't dispute the report. What exactly happened remains unclear. Some say it was self-defense. Others suggest there's more to the story. But the result is undeniable. Another layer of isolation on top of everything else already cracking. But the solitary confinement wasn't the only disturbing detail leaking out. Back when he first appeared in court, observers noticed something unsettling. Diddy was thinner, grayer. The early speculation suggested he just missed the amenities of his former life. But the whispers shifted. Maggot-infested food was supposedly circulating through the system, inmates refusing trays. Appetite gone, weight dropping dangerously fast, but the streets pushed deeper. The drain look, they said, came from something heavier than bad meals, an acute STD, HIV. The rumors were specific and horrifying. Prison staff confirmation of an outbreak linked to him started circulating. Folks saying Diddy had been getting down with DL inmates, no protection available, the virus spreading among the population, dudes fighting over who makes his bed, who gets close, who earns approval. Full-blown fan club energy inside the walls. If the rumors hold, the same reckless pattern from the free world followed him in. For years, the streets talked about the down-low lifestyle. Male escorts, secret flights, shut-door parties, freak-off events where boundaries disappeared and protection never made the guest list. The feds raided the homes and found nearly 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Nothing that pointed to safety measures, just the vibe and the risk. So if he's using the same energy inside, then he and other inmates might be battling health challenges. The online speculation has been relentless. Some say the virus talk explains the drain look better than any maggot tray. Others point at the energy and ask how long an outbreak stays contained in a dorm setting. One user mockingly put it, "Maggots in the food, but that ain't nothing but protein." Another wrote he's not getting out. Enough is enough. But these are rumors, online speculation, not established facts. The reality is that while the physical threats kept coming, the walls were closing in from another direction entirely. The outside support started cracking. Clive Davis, the legendary record executive who allegedly opened doors early, shaped the empire, pulled strings from the outside. Once the charges hit, reports said Diddy broke down heavily in prison after the news, wailing like the last real lifeline snapped. Clive had been working with Diddy's mother and the legal team, pressing for early moves, quiet help behind the scenes. But when asked about helping Diddy, Clive said nothing. Other names in the industry had already distanced themselves. Nobody wanted to go down with the ship. The silence from former allies was deafening. Friends who once filled his mansions now avoided his calls. Business partners who profited from his empire refused to comment. The isolation wasn't just physical. It was social, professional, existential. With that protector gone, the isolation inside got colder. No more soft landings from powerful friends on the outside. The streets say that loss made every threat inside land harder. Attacks that might have been managed before now sit different. The pressure from every direction stacked higher. Meanwhile, the legal side kept shifting. New lawsuits dropped. Witnesses stepped up with claims of arranged companionship, nose candy, situations that crossed serious lines. Adria English talked about being pulled in after a modeling audition, then trapped in cycles at the white parties. April Lampro described encounters from the 90s after promises of mentorship. Crystal McKenna said she was 22 at Fashion Week when career help turned into a studio situation that left lasting damage. Patterns repeating. The stories were different, but the structure was disturbingly similar. Young women with dreams, promises of mentorship, uncomfortable situations, pressure, coercion, silence, and always, the threat of being blackballed if they spoke up. Now they're speaking up. They're finding each other. Their voices are building a narrative that the legal system is starting to take seriously. The trial looms. His lawyers will try to get him released before it starts. They're arguing that the judge relied on acquitted conduct during sentencing. But the evidence and arguments keep reaffirming the case against him. The defense wants it done as fast as possible. Diddy is set to be released in April of 2028. That's the target. But with every new claim, every resurfaced story, early freedom looks further away. And inside, the same energy that once controlled rooms now sits under constant watch, dealing with group dynamics, health rumors, fresh physical confrontations. What's happening in that cell is a different kind of tragedy. It's a story of a man who once thought he was untouchable, now at the mercy of a system he tried to control. The biggest twist in this story might not be what happens in the courtroom, but what happens in the shadows of the MDC. The man who once used cameras to control others is now being watched, constantly, by a system that has no empathy for his former status. The future is uncertain. Will he be convicted? Will the trial reveal even more shocking secrets? Or will the pressures of jail life push him over the edge? What else is sitting in those staff reports that hasn't hit the streets yet? And if the attacks keep coming even after the transfer and the solitary stretch, how much longer before the walls claim more than just time? The silence from his cell is deafening. It's the silence of a man who can't buy his way out of his current situation. The silence of a man who can no longer manipulate the narrative. Behind bars, his true story is being written by others. The man who once sang "Can't Nobody Hold Me Down" is now imprisoned by his own actions. The only thing left to do is watch and see how this story ends. If you enjoy deep celebrity stories, hidden details, and the biggest moments behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe to Blamed of Fame, turn on notifications, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.